In the Frum community, there's a discussion about the use of cannabis. Some discuss it versus alcohol because already in the tradition there's drinking l'chaim. But in some traditions, in some Haredi circles, there is no drinking mashke in the first place. So the question is not, is it better or worse? But if you're talking from in Chabad, where it's grandfathered in, and that's the key point here, it is grandfathered in, so whether it's good or not, it exists. But don't forget, there was a gzeira against mashke, a decree that the Rebbe gave against drinking more than 4. I'm not sure which doctor was helping the Rebbe to decide how much dosage is good for the masses, and are there people that have to decide that they have to do their own test? Because by the end of the day, a key point here is that only you can decide how much is good for you, if it's good for you at all. And if it's good for you, then those who say it's not good, like the use of cannabis, don't bother listening to them, because they don't know themselves what they want. And that's another, I'm going to define that. So, one guy says he was in Yechidus. It makes it sound like it was a real discussion. You know, they had a discussion about marijuana with the Rebbe versus alcohol. Yechidus is not like that. Yechidus is you come in, it looks personal, but it can't be. That's why we have a thing called Yechidus Klolius, a general Yechidus, which is such a contradiction in terms. Where the Rebbe would see many people because the numbers of Hassidim grew to bigger numbers, so now he doesn't have time to be your personal Rebbe. But in your dreams, you have every right to dream that he's your personal Rebbe and that he really cares about you like a father. Even though if you're a soldier, you don't need a father figure. Who are you asking? Why are you asking for a father figure in the first place? Because you're marketing to people that their sensibilities value such a thing in the first place. There were Hassidim that bragged that they didn't waste the Rebbe's times, but that's a discussion on Yechidus, and that's not what I promised. But that would be a great one right there, because that's the whole underpinning of what is Hasidus mit Rebbe Shezachen. So this gentleman, and it's published on Gem, he says he was in the Yechidus and he speaks to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe says something about the cannabis gives you a feeling like of mamoshus, he says. Something's there, and when you try to define it, this is the words he used, and you reach for it, it's fantasy. Turns into fantasy. It remains in fantasy. You would think that if some academic was looking at this, or some very sharp bacher, the ones who used to read Chassidus and always get it, you would think that when he says that about fantasy and mamoshus, approaching something that looks real and then you find that's fantasy, you would think he's talking about Chassidus. And anyway, so the argument of back and forth doesn't really stand, because the mashke led to violence, and that's why there was exeda in the first place. And why more than 4? It was something about playing. They played. This is how I heard it from my father, and I have to check it because it doesn't seem clear to me. There's no contradiction, but it doesn't seem clear to me. So they allowed to play the song Hatikva, which is a Zionist song, and in the yeshiva. The yeshiva's dinner. It was a dinner. It wasn't for yeshiva people. It was for donors. What do you expect? Shouldn't be any regulations for the donors. Let them do what they want. They have to just drop their money and go. And they say that somebody snitched, and then the Rebbe said, okay, so in that case, I take my name off the yeshiva, which makes no sense because it's his yeshiva. It's like, okay, I'm taking my name off my car because you borrowed the car and you didn't drive like a mensch. Okay, so give me the car. I'll take the car. And the one who snitched was later beaten because people were drinking and it was a fabrengen and they were intoxicated, so someone went out and beat him up for snitching. That's the story of why what's called the Gzeda, that until the age of 40, you shouldn't be allowed. That's an interesting age, and why they chose that age. Is it a mystical number or is it practical? Because I think, 40, maybe not. Maybe it should be, So until the age of 40, you can't have more than 4 l'chaims. And no one knows the size exactly. There's little debates on it. But, in the end of the day, those who believe in it are going to figure it out. And they're not going to cheat. And those who are going to cheat, what's the point of giving them rule? Maybe it helps even. Because they kind of halfway believe in they believe like they have a kashrus, like they have a connection to that, And if they cheat, they're cheating on themselves, in a way. So, and then, there's another writer, some guy that was, he was in Chabad, and these things bothered him. Let's say, they're not going to call him an ex-Chabad, or he was a chassid, a Baal Tshuva, came in, he was upset, he was critical. Let's just say it bothered him. In the end of the day, it doesn't matter if he stayed for him or not. It doesn't bother me, That's his choice. But by the end of the day, these issues bothered him. And he spoke about Mashke, and something to do with the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, the Mashke would either quiet it down. The real, as if to say that the Mashke is for a Farbrengen. Some people drink, but they're quiet about it because according to Allah, you're not allowed to do it. But they drink before davening. And there was one shliach that did it here in California, and he called it the internal mikveh. And the people who are not even Chabad, clearly not Chabad, who were in his circle, they loved him and they loved this idea, so they called it internal mikveh, and they liked it. But in the end of the day, this is not going to be here forever. This bagel place, fakakt, but it's Heimish, but it's fakakt. They don't have a first aid kit. I fell outside in front on a skateboard. I was bleeding. Went to the bathroom, washed my wound with soap and water. You do the best you can with what you have. Avoid infection. That's the key. Mashke. If I had mashke, I could have washed it with mashke. That's why they needed mashke in the Farbrengens, because there was a lot of violence and bloodshed. Just kidding. And they needed something to take care of the wounds. God forbid. No, just kidding. So in the end of the day, the use of cannabis is up to you. But so the guy, why is he talking about it? To make it like as if it's a serious discussion, and to make it like all this is, this lady's crossing the street like nothing's happening. Red light. And to make it like, but these are not people that are searching for truth, and there's good debate, by philosophers of people who think about religion. So they go, if there's a guy that studied biology, how could he be opposed to evolution? So that they want to know, does he only carry these inconsistencies when it comes to religious beliefs, or does this inconsistency carry on in this person's personal life and the way he thinks about the world? So that's a good question. And a lot of people, at the end of the day, it's only the oisnam, as we call it in Yiddish, the only exception they make is for their religious belief. Like someone who's educated, and not someone who dismisses evolution because doesn't even know what it is in the first place, but someone who studied and knows this stuff and dismisses certain things, or at least maybe is pretending. But there are people, and then there's those who, of course, who don't believe in anything, and they're highly educated. Those are interesting people. The wiring is not right, because how do you function in the world, practically speaking? But the debate about cannabis use, first of all, so the mashke, even in Chabad, Chabad carries all the flack for it, but they shouldn't, because those who carried it in their lockers and they didn't have it on the tables and it wasn't a religious thing for them, but they drank anyway on Shabbos, so they called it the Kiddush clubs. Rabbi Herschel Billet, he's a very Farbissina guy in the first place. Very Farbissin. He's not just against mashke, he's against food. When we were in Italy, his group was staying at the Excelsior in Florence, Italy. Very fine hotel. I think it's $5,000 a night now. Back then it was $600 a night. Count the inflation. And they had to, so there was a lot of good leftover food, herrings, cakes, you name it, challahs. And the guy had to sneak it to us that Billet should know. Instead of going to the trash, it's going to Chabad, because he hated Chabad so much. But Sammy was the guy, not going to say his full name, sweet guy. So he snuck it to us, and we had food for days because of that. And he was one of these well-organized tours, Orthodox, kosher food and all that. But, and we did a lot of kiruv with this herring. We gave it to kibbutzniks on Shabbos from the shop. We'd open the shop on Shabbos and hand it to them. Shabbos, make Kiddush. But he was against the Kiddush clubs, fighting it.